What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to First in Foxborough. I'm Kyrie Thompson. Make sure you download, subscribe, stream this on the free Odyssey app and wherever you get your podcasts. The new league year has officially begun in the NFL, and wow, are the New England Patriots off to a blazing fast start. Look at some of these incredible additions. Who they had? JuJu Smith-Schuster. Yay! Actually, that's not bad. But yes, re-signed Jabril Peppers. Yay! Good job. Wow. Where's the whole where are we supposed to be getting like Orlando Brown and Mike McGlinchey and trading for DeAndre Hopkins? What happened? Pate Lane, I need you to help me out with that.
I mean, it's still possible. It's those guys are still out there, right? So like we haven't checked those off the box yet. Orlando Brown's probably not going to happen, but you never know. You never know.
You never know. That is Pate Lane, Patriots Nation Pod, co-host with me today to give you the Pats fan perspective on what is going on. Because look, you know, okay. I don't know that I would describe myself as a fan. I haven't been here that long, man. I've only really been here a couple of years. I can grow up here, but look, I cover the team. I want to see the team be good. You know, I don't want to cover a bad football team.
Right.
And last year I lost brain cells. I lost years off my life. I mean, it was wild. So, of course, you look at them coming into this process with what, $27 million or so in free cap space, and you're thinking, okay, got a little bit of room to play around with stuff. It's not as bad as it was last year where you had like 13, right? But bargain bin hunting again, which isn't that surprising. I'm just saying it's not that surprising. But again, it's like, yeah, they're really just sticking to their guns, even though they got more money and they're coming off a rough year. They're not changing up their approach. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, obviously we'd love the splash, right? By the way, I got to say, I'm pretty honored to be your first guest of the new football season officially,
yes,
right?
That's right.
So that's pretty cool, you know?
Yeah.
Got that little feather in my cap.
Yes, you
do. But you know, I think this is what Bill does, right? He didn't do it in 2021. And I think the big reason why he didn't do it in 2021, because that team sucked. That 2020 team sucked. That was a bad team. And so he had to go out and get guys to just make them competent again. I mean, they won 7 games somehow in 2020, but like they really had no business winning 27 games. That team was terrible. And so you had to go out and get guys to just make it a competent football team, right? You sign Nelson Aguilar, you sign Kendrick Bourne, you go out and, you know, you sign JuJu Smith and Hunter Henry and Matthew Judon, and, you know, the list goes on. And it's like, because you didn't have anyone, they just didn't have any good players. So they had to go out and get a bunch of guys. Now I think they've done a really good job the last 3 years of drafting. And you're seeing some of those young guys kind of step into these roles. Kyle Duggar has become an impact player. Mac Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, you know, Christian Barmore, you know. So it's like, so you sit there and say, okay. And last year's draft, I think hopefully you can hope for more from Tyquan Thornton. You have a starting guard in Cole Strange. You get the Jones brothers, you know, in the secondary. So you feel pretty good about where you're going. So you're like, all right, we have some talent on the team now. We don't have to get competent again. We're already competent. Now, we're not great, but we're at least competent level. And with better coaching, which they significantly improved their coaching staff, if you have a competent team and good coaching, you can at least get into the playoff hunt. Now, their division got significantly better as well. So now it's like, if we're going to even sniff the playoffs, we're going to have to compete, you know, for 6 games a year against 3 of the best teams in the AFC at this point. And, you know, I don't know if the Dolphins are one of the best teams in the AFC, but getting Aaron Rodgers instantly makes the Jets that good, especially with that defense. And so you sit there and say, like, all right, well, now maybe do we got to mix some things up? Bill doesn't mix things up, though. He doesn't care. He's never going to do it, right? You never know. You know, Aaron Rodgers might burn that locker room to the ground. So you have no idea, right, what's going to happen. But it is interesting. I'd love to see them go out and spend a lot of money. It's still possible they do it with Orlando Brown. I doubt they do. But, like, how cool would it be if Bill coached his father and now coaches him? That'd be pretty awesome. Yeah. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see.
We will. And I did hear from somebody who I trust that the Patriots are in on Orlando Brown. I don't know what that means because
Right.
I think essentially what we've been seeing with Orlando Brown is he wants left tackle money, premier left tackle
Yep.
money. And it doesn't seem like anybody wants to pay him that. They want him to go to right tackle, which is okay, I get it. So that market might take a while to settle itself. I don't
Mhm.
know if that ends with him coming to New England or not, but it does sound like the interest is there. And quite frankly, I mean the need isn't necessarily there now, which we'll go through some of these signings in a minute, but it would be helpful and it would give you more options in the draft. Now, you
Right.
mentioned the AFC and the Bills, well, they're the Bills. They're the class of division still.
Mhm.
The Miami Dolphins just they're the third monster trade in less than a year, getting Jalen Ramsey to come there.
Yep.
Their secondary, their roster is just loaded with talent, and they're building it around Tua Tagovailoa, who they picked up his fifth-year option. So it looks
Yep.
like he's their guy, barring anything crazy and health permitting,
Right.
obviously. Aaron Rodgers just said he wants to play and he wants to play for the Jets. So it would seem that that is going to happen in relatively short order. I mean, the Jets are. There's a part of me where it's like the Jets are still the Jets. You
Yep.
got to you got to show me. That's what I said last year. People were talking about, oh man, the Jets. The Patriots might be the fourth team in the division because look at those Jets on paper, they're more talented than you. And I was just like, no, you got to show me. And of
Yep.
course, they got their brains beat in by the Patriots because they were playing Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson's terrible.
Yeah.
Now, let's go ahead and get into these additions. Okay,
Mhm.
let's start with the re-signings because that's where they've mainly focused on things. Re-signed Matthew Slater, Connor McDermott, James Ferentz, Raekwon McMillan, John Jones, big one. First big one of kind of the new year, I
Yeah.
would say.
I agree.
And Jabril Peppers, which I also really like. Big fan of that.
Yeah.
And then on the veteran side of things, the external additions, you've added Riley Reif, Calvin Anderson, both tackles, and the aforementioned JuJu Smith-Schuster. You have lost Jakobi Meyers, and you traded away JuJu Smith, which good on them for getting out of that contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
Devin McCourty retired, and Jake Bailey released. So first of all, which one of those moves struck you the most, good or bad?
Right. Well, yeah, it's funny because I think the Juju thing is interesting because clearly the Patriots preferred Juju over Jakobi Meyers
Yep.
because they gave him the same contract. And I know the guaranteed money is a little bit different, but they gave him
Yeah,
essentially the same contract.
Juju came in a little bit cheaper, but yeah, 3 years, 33 for both of them.
Right, right. And so, they preferred Juju over Jakobi Meyers. And I don't know if I can blame them for that, to be honest with you. I think Myers has been a reliable piece here. He's a great guy. Everyone in the locker room loves him. He works his tail off, but he doesn't have the juice that Schuster does, right? That Smith-Schuster does. And I think that really, to me, is what separates him, is that you get a guy, and Matt was talking about it. We did a little quick instant reaction today, and he was saying, Matt kind of struggled in zone last year, and Jakobi's not really that zone sit guy, and Juju has excelled at that in his career, and this should help Mac in some of those situations where he finds those soft spots in the zone and just sits down. And so he's a big slot, similar to what Myers is. That probably doesn't have, definitely doesn't have, I should say, the contested catch ability that Myers has, but he gives you more yak after the catch. I think since 2016 or 2018, maybe he's second in the NFL in yak per, behind Cooper Kupp. That's pretty damn good, right? So that's one of those things for me where I just think you can bring this guy in, you can run these underneath routes, have him sit down in zone, and he gets open. And I thought it was interesting that they preferred him over Myers. And again, I think maybe I hope they made the right call. Seems like they did, on paper at least, but we'll have to see. And the other one was John Jones because, when someone said there was more money elsewhere and he decided to stay with the Patriots, that was surprising to me because I thought he could go out there and get paid, and he got less than $10 million a year. I mean, really didn't get paid much to stay here. And so I'm happy to see him back because I think he's a key piece of the team. But I'm also happy that it wasn't on a huge deal because I feel like he's best inside, right? Or, hey, Tyreek Hill's playing at Miami, go cover Tyreek Hill. He could do that, right? But he's not shutting down Stephon Diggs. He's not like a number one corner, but he's a fast guy who provides you some really good depth and is just a consistently good player for the Patriots. And so I'm happy he's back as well. But again, surprised that he took a little bit of a hometown discount to do it.
Yeah, and you wonder why that is. And I mean, it might just be because look, they know how to use me, they know how to utilize my skills, and like I trust these coaches. 'Cause I feel there's so many factors to free agency, choosing a new team that a
Yeah,
lot of us don't think about because usually like we're thinking about just the money, right? Oh, if you can go get more money elsewhere, then you should go do that. Or, oh, I really hope that he just resigns with my team out of loyalty or like loyalty, to the player or what have you. And there are so many different things about it, like your family, or having roots here, or do you feel like it's a better fit for your scheme? Do you have friends on the other team, people that
right.
that you want to play with? And there's so many things to consider. And it really does seem like he's a guy that's rooted here now, and he has trust in this coaching staff. These cornerback coaches, Bill Belichick, everybody over there, that they are going to do right by him. And quite frankly, the Patriots need him because even if he's
Yeah,
not the he's not your prototypical number one cornerback. He's your best cornerback right now,
that's correct.
and you can't afford to lose that because out of any of the positions, and I've been hammering the wide receiver thing a lot. Out of any of the positions, if you lost him, that cornerback room is hurting the most
Yeah,
out of any of the position groups that you could lose somebody at. Because you could at least look at the wide receiver group, and again, not a big fan of their overall ceiling right now. But losing Jakobi Meyers, you could say to yourself, okay, look, Devontae Parker's been a productive player in this league. He's just got to stay healthy. Tyquan Thornton still got some promise. Kendrick Bourne has had promise for you. They are NFL players. At least you got two veteran players that you can rely on. In the cornerback room, you had like Marcus Jones, Jack Jones, Sean Wade, and
yeah,
like Miles Bryant. And that is just
not good.
no bueno. Cannot do
Yeah,
that. So you definitely had to have him back. I'm interested. I'm intrigued by the two offensive tackles, especially with, and again, this might have been agent speak, which I think to an extent it probably is mostly agent speak, but the idea that Riley Reef is expected to go and win a starting job. I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know about all of that. But he's a guy that when healthy, he's up there in years, 34, but when healthy, he's been solid. And Calvin Anderson's a guy that, again, kind of like a spot starting role or like at a reserve
right.
role, been okay. Those are guys that if you didn't, for whatever reason, like the first round tackles, or they were gone by the time you get to pick
Mhm.
14, the big three that everybody wants, if they are gone by that point, and you decide, I'm going to go with an edge, like one of the Clemson guys, Miles Murphy or,
Yep.
Brian Breesy, if you want to go with one of them, you want to go with the corner, or you want
Say
to,
Flowers.
yeah, you want to go with some Zay Flowers, that in round 2 or 3, there are guys that you can say, okay, I like him. Let's go ahead and take him. And that you're not screwed if you miss out
Right.
on the big 3 because you've got guys that are competent, which again, looking at the offensive line situation from last year, a lot of people hated Trent Brown. Quite honestly, the guy was fine.
Right.
He had a couple of outlier, really horrible
Yeah.
games, but by and large, the dude was fine. Cole Strange was fine. Again, had a couple of rough ones, but by and large, he was okay. Right tackle was the only spot that was just bad, just
Right.
consistently no good. You get that part figured out. Give Mac Jones competent pass blocking
Right.
and competent coaching on that offensive line. Maybe you don't need to feel like, oh my God, the offensive line is in such a dire situation, in my
I,
opinion.
I agree with you 100%. 100% on that. And I think, bringing in the 3 guys that they brought, of course, they bring back McDermott, but bringing in the 2 guys that they brought in, look, is Reef going to be a starter for you? I don't know. But like you said, he could be. And again, he's not an A+ player, but can he give you like C+, B- at that spot? Like that's an upgrade over what you had last year, and you're paying $5 million for it. You're paying nothing for it, right? So if you're able to get someone else, great. He can be a good leader in the locker room. He can, maybe bring a rookie along if you draft a rookie somewhere along the way. Maybe you draft a rookie and the guy beats him out. Who knows, right? But the point is that you have a guy that you're like, all right, we're not screwed. We're not sitting here at 14 saying we have to take a tackle. And then the top two go in the top 10, and now you're scrambling to try to trade up to get the third one. It's like, no. We don't need to do that anymore, because if worse comes to worse, we can stick him at right tackle and say, you know what, we can get by with it. It may not be perfect, but we can get by with it, and we can draft a little bit of a project later. Blake Freeland is the guy from BYU. I love that guy. I think if they take him later, he can be a good project. He can't start this year. He's not ready to start in the NFL this year. I don't think it. Maybe he'll prove us wrong, and he will be, but I don't think he's ready to start this year. But he doesn't have to start this year if you have a guy that can give you at least competent stuff on the right-hand side. So I agree with you 100%. Like what it does is it gives them options. So you have depth. And the JuJu thing is the same thing. It gives you options where you look at it and say, like, we're not screwed. Would we like to get a number one wide receiver? Absolutely. Would we trade for Jerry Jeudy? I'd do it in a second. But like we're not screwed if that's what we go into this year with. It's what we had last year, right? And we didn't upgrade, but we also didn't really downgrade, right? And so I'd like to see them do something, but that's where you can draft a wide receiver and say, we can bring him along and kind of see what he has. And so I think the depth part of it is huge. And Peppers does that, and Jones does it. And so you're building this competent team to say, we have the depth, we can compete. When healthy, we can compete. And if everything goes well, we can actually be a playoff team, right? Right now, as constituted, we can do that because we've built this depth in. Now, one of those guys drops at 14 and we get a stud at 14, or suddenly the trade market for Jeudy drops, or suddenly the market value for Orlando Brown drops, and we're able to get, whatever the case may be, if you're able to get another stud or two, well, now there might be even a different story, right? But I think that right now you're comfortable with where you are because of the depth that you have and just the competency. Like you have competent guys in places that you didn't have before.
Yes. And I think that and you mentioned it. The idea that you have competence at tackle and wide receiver and corner now, right? You can put corner in that conversation, even though I think you're going to need one.
Yeah.
But you can say that you can go more or less whichever way you want now at pick number 14. It does not have to be one thing or the other. It can just be what you value. Now, I think that based on their history, what they value most is offensive tackle in this kind of spot. A premium position, right? It was quarterback last time with Mac Jones when they were up this high. And this time it's probably going to be offensive line, specifically offensive tackle. However, if that is not the case, or rather if offensive line is gone, what would you do? Because I know what I would do if given the opportunity. And I wonder if we might be about to see something of a Cole Strange this year in terms of a guy getting drafted higher than people think he should. But that it would work for the Patriots. You know where I'm going with this?
I know you're going Zay Flowers on this. I mean, that's your guy, right? I mean, like I would love to see it too. I think that's where you're going with it. In my opinion, at 14, if those three tight tackles are gone, I'm praying Christian Gonzalez is there. If he's there, I'm taking him in a heartbeat because you need that position. Now, if you go out and sign Darius Slay, okay, then you don't need that position anymore. But it's a position of need, and the kid's an absolute stud. So that might be where I'd go at 14. But like the thing about Flowers, and this is, a little preview into, I've been kicking around a mock draft 3.0, and one of my things is trading back, I think 4 spots and taking Zay Flowers at like 18. Because I think if you're taking him in the top 20, it's still earlier than what people expect. Which is funny because you went to the combine, everyone thought he was a top 15 pick. He was good at the combine. Not like he was bad at the combine, but I think some other people blew people out of the water. And so those guys jumped up and you're like, well, he was a top 15 pick before the combine. He might still be a top 15 pick and you could get him a little bit later now because, you're infatuated with the edge class or whatever the case may be. And now you get a guy who can be an absolute beast in the Bill O'Brien system,
Yes.
In that spot. And you have, JuJu, who's kind of your underneath guy. You have Tyquan Thornton, who's your speed guy. You have Devontae Parker, who is your, contested catch guy. You have Zay Flowers, who's your slot, right? Your quick, twitchy, Edelman-like slot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Kendrick Bourne, too, who is still on the team. And, every time he's out there, makes good plays. So it's like that. Then I'm looking at my wide receiver core saying, it's a pretty damn good wide receiving core. And, oh, by the way, kind of important, you need to figure out if Mac Jones is the guy or not.
That is the most
now you've surrounded
thing.
yourself with that.
That's the most important thing this team needs to figure out this year. And obviously, we've been talking about offensive line. I know the importance of making sure that Mac Jones has protection. Right. But again, it's this idea to me that, and people kind of talked about it, the car analogy, where not having an offensive line is just not having wheels on the car. It's not going anywhere at all, which I get. Whereas having a wide receiver is like whether or not you have a performance engine, right? You have a performance engine, you have a slow, crappy engine that, sputters and stops or whatever, but you can still move. You're just not going particularly fast. You have to have the offensive line / the wheels in order to have a baseline competence, to have a floor. But you're not going to find out what the ceiling is if you ain't got that performance engine.
Correct.
Right? You need the high octane. And so I feel like, and this is something that I've wondered about with Bill Belichick, is the approach too antiquated? Is there still this need to get with the program? Like, we need to get studs, explosive guys that can change games with speed and athleticism, as opposed to just being, oh, well, he fits well, he runs good routes, and we like him. Tyquan Thornton was kind of a little bit of a step in that direction. Yeah. And I feel like Zay Flowers is a good middle ground because he is a guy that has produced a lot with horrible quarterback play. I mean, good God, they're over there throwing the ball off the field, and this guy's shaking people down on his routes, and the ball's not even close.
What was it? The end of the Clemson game where he just what you do? He just fumbles a snap and loses. And you're just like, come on, man. Like,
he had no shot, man. He had no shot. So I feel like, to me, man, like I would love to see that. I would also like to see Jackson Smith and Jigba. Mm-hmm. I keep getting the feeling, though, that he might not make it there, that he might have 3-coned his way into a top 12 pick, which, may happen. But I feel like if he dropped to number 14, that's low-key my best player available. And I know there are good corners and all that. And, it is assuming tackles are off the board. I'm like, I think I might do that.
Well, just listen to Garrett Wilson, right? Listen to Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who they say the best receiver is on the team. Jackson's JSN. He's the best receiver on the team. They said it over and over and over again. He's better than we are. And that's okay. And I believe them, right? And you see the 3-cone drill and you see the route running and you see the polish from him. Like, he is.
Some of the charts on this guy, the way that he outproduced, no matter what the scheme was that he were going against, man or zone, he was like wide receiver 1 by an entire planet.
Right. Yeah, that one, the graph where it's like everyone's down here and he's up here by himself. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, that's outrageous. Oh my God, he's insane. It's funny you made the comment about line versus explosive players. I mean, to me, that's a non-starter at this point. We can't have that conversation anymore. The 2021 Cincinnati Bengals ended that conversation. Yep. They ended it. It was over. Penny Sewell was the best tackle prospect since Orlando Pace, probably, right? And maybe that might be a little hyperbole, but you get the idea. And they took Jamar Chase over him, and they made the freaking Super Bowl.
And they were getting absolutely destroyed, killed for that move. And I mean, they get to the Super Bowl, and then the offensive line lets them down. But they got to the Super Bowl.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, well, the offensive, it's like, well, did they get there without Jamar Chase? Like, come on, dude. Like,
no, not.
And that's the thing. It's like, if you have that guy, or those guys, because really what it turned into was him and Higgins and Boyd. And it was like, oh my God, we can't stop these guys, you know? And so if you can build an offense that's that good with skill players, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And I think Belichick, you know, you mentioned it. I think he is realizing that's where we're headed, right? You saw, I thought, you know, Tyquan was definitely a departure for sure in what they normally look for. Marcus Jones, who's a guy that can do everything, won the Paul Hornung, I get all that stuff. He was small. I mean, real small. And they went after him because of his speed and his athleticism and what they can bring as an electric player. And you saw it on the field. Jack Jones, he's got, you know, he takes chances. Belichick doesn't take guys that take chances like that. He wants guys that are dependable and reliable, and you know where they're going to be, and you know who they are. He doesn't take chances on guys like that. And it paid off with Jack Jones. Now, hopefully the whole suspension thing is, you know, water under the bridge and everything else like that. But I think last year was kind of a look into that. Hey, we got to start making a move. We got to start changing the way that we're doing things and bringing in some of these, you know, elite athletic players. Even Pierre Strong, you know, the fastest 40 time out of anyone at the combine for a running back. So, you know, I think to me, you look at it and say they're headed in that direction. Now, will he say, screw the offensive line, I'm taking JSN or Zay Flowers in the first round? He might. I don't know, right? And I guess that's the question. Then the question becomes, if Paris Johnson and JSN are sitting there at 14, then what does he do? Right? And so then that becomes the question. Now, what? And I almost like, I'm sitting there like, I don't know. Like if they're at 14 and they have both those guys there, I'm like, I don't know what I'd do. Maybe I'd take JSN, but Paris Johnson's so damn good. Like I don't, you know.
Yeah, and see that's the thing, right? I feel like there are so many different fluctuations and different thoughts about this tackle class. Honestly, I feel like I've heard people say that Broderick Jones has the best upside of any of the tackles. I feel like it's Paris Johnson Jr.
I think so too. Yeah,
he's got arms like freaking oars.
Yeah.
You know, and the athleticism, the patience. I don't know. I feel like he's gonna be good. If you want the guy who's gonna be really good right now, though, I kind of feel like JSN is your guy right now. You know,
Yeah.
if you're talking about upside, I could get with some Paris Johnson Jr.
Right.
That would be absolutely fascinating. And hey, that might be the discussion. That might be the very discussion that happens at pick number 9 for them Chicago Bears.
I mean, hey, your Bears are killing the offseason right now. The offseason.
I mean, here's the thing, man. Like, that's the kind of thing that you want them to do for Mac Jones, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. I get it that that was a unique situation, right? Having the number 1 overall pick, being able to trade out of that and being able to get DJ Moore thrown in as a sweetener.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's pretty nice.
Oh my God. That's
Davis
amazing.
Mills, you should be sending Davis Mills, you know, I don't even know, dude. The entire city of Chicago needs to buy Davis Mills. And Lovie Smith.
Well,
I blame the Texans. I blame the Texans because the Texans told Lovie Smith he was done. And that was an FU touchdown. That was you're kicking me out? All right, we're going to win this game and you're going to lose the number 1 pick. You know, it's like they got exactly what they deserved. You're right.
They deserved it. I mean, and to think that's the kind of thing that other teams are doing for their third-year quarterbacks is, let's go out and get you a stud. Yeah. And the Patriots are like, we're gonna go get you JuJu Smith-Schuster, which look, that might not be it. That might not be it. But it just feels like they have a different way of doing things. They don't feel so compelled to be like, oh yeah, we got to go out and get you a star, because I feel like to an extent, like they just don't think the quarterback is that important.
Right.
I mean, not to say it's not important, but it's like they don't think that, we got to find out if this guy is the guy, you know, and get ready to pay him $40 million. I feel like they're just like, you know, if he's not the guy, we'll just play Bailey Zappi, or we'll just draft another dude like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's fascinating, and you're right. Like I'm fascinated to see if he ever makes the shift, and he may be out of the league at this point. And if Mac's the guy, then we'll never have to find out. But I'm curious if he ever makes the shift to that dual threat quarterback, right? That DTR player, that Anthony Richardson. I mean, what if Anthony Richardson's there at 14 somehow? What if I don't even want to open this can of worms. What if Jalen Carter? What if Jalen Carter, after that pro day today, what if Jalen Carter's sitting there at
Oh,
14?
I'm thinking about it. I keep
Right?
thinking about it.
Jesus Christ,
It's possible. And you know what? There's a part of me that my first thought was that he would do it.
Yeah.
That was my first thought, was that Bill would do it. And he would take Carter and he would laugh his way to the bank.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the kid's a stud. He's a stud. He's had a horrible month. A horrible month. And so he's out of shape and he's not in football shape and his head's not in it right now. But you're telling me you can't draft him and you can't get you can't get his head in the game by September? I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Whew. Anyways, we're way off topic.
I think they could,
but,
yeah, we're off topic, but I think they could get him there. Let me hit you with one last topic before we
yes.
hop off. We mentioned Evan McCourty, that he's retired. And there's a void in leadership, obviously, that you really can't replace.
Correct.
But then there's the part on field that they have to replace in some form or fashion. And there's been a lot of talk about, oh yeah, let's go out and get, Jesse Bates or
Right.
Jordan Poyer, right? And to me, it seems like they've already got good safeties on the roster, good multi-dimensional safeties in Peppers, whom they just re-signed, Adrian Phillips, and Kyle Duggar, obviously. But all of them are kind of guys that you don't think of like, oh yeah, I just want to stick them in the deep part of the field and let them chill back there. So I feel like there's going to be a little bit of rotation, a little bit of committee. But what do you think about Jalen Mills being a primary in-house candidate to take on that role?
It's interesting. That's a really interesting thought. He did tweet out yesterday or 2 days ago how, didn't I tell you all I was a safety, right? So I think he's open to it, which is good. That's the first step. Then the second question is, can he do it, right? And that's really the other question behind it. So we don't know what, Josh Bledsoe looked great in training camp and then got on the field and really couldn't play, couldn't get on the field. And I guess maybe it's because you had so many good safeties ahead of him, but he got hurt, but then he just couldn't find the football field. So you wonder, is he the guy to take over there? I think Jalen Mills is a good option. I'm going to throw this at you. Okay. In one of my mock drafts, I had the Patriots taking Keely Ringo and flipping him to free safety, similar to what they did with McCourty, only because the biggest question with Ringo is the hips, right? It's the change of direction ability while he's covering receivers one-on-one. He's got the speed and he's got the size and the physicality for it. If you throw him out there like McCourty was, maybe he becomes one of the, and now you're going to need, in that situation, you're going to need someone like Jalen Mills because he's probably not going to be able to make that shift to full-time free safety immediately. Right.
Right.
But you can work him in there. You can train him for it. If he's open to it, he might be that guy that kind of takes over, for that spot. And so that was just a thought that I had, but I like the idea. I think it becomes, by committee. I also think too, like if you go out and sign Julian Love, or you go out and sign old friend Deron Harmon, or you bring in a guy that, okay, he's not amazing, but he's there, right? I was kind of hoping Juan Thornhill would be that guy, but he went elsewhere. And so it's like, are you going to get a guy that's a depth player? And then you're just going to throw a bunch of guys at it. Because we don't have one guy back there, but we got 4 guys back there that can all do it. We're going to rotate him in and out. And, instead of having one Pro Bowl caliber player back there, it's going to be 4 guys that we're just going to patchwork it together and then see if we can get a guy later on. I hate the idea. Brian Branch been thrown around. I hate the idea of taking Brian Branch at 14. I just hate it. I hate it. Like you don't need a safety. It's a free safety. I know it's an important position, but at 14, that's wild. So, that one's out for me. But I think, throw a bunch of people at it. And then if you want to draft a rookie, and again, it doesn't have to be Ringo, but draft a guy with upside who can learn the position and eventually take it over, right? And if you can throw a bunch of guys at it this year, and maybe that guy is good enough where he takes over midseason, who knows, right? But just have the people out there that are competent and can do it. I love the idea of Mills, but again, it's not like you're going to throw Jalen Mills at free safety and you're good. Like that's
right.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that he had his best overall year and his best year in coverage when he was a safety with the Philadelphia Eagles that last year, right before he came to the Patriots. And honestly, that I feel like that might have made him his money, if we're going to be
Yeah,
completely
probably.
honest, that year, because he was not very good as an outside corner before that. Since then has been better with the Patriots, actually better than I expected him to be.
Way
But
better. Yeah.
he was also still like, he wasn't just a straight up deep safety. He was in the box. He was by the line of scrimmage. He kind of played everywhere. He was in the slot a lot. So it's not just, oh yeah, you stick him as a deep safety and that's just what he does. But having that positional versatility could be big. But again, as we talked about, it's not just on the field with Devin McCourty. The void that he's going to
Yeah.
leave, one of the great Patriots of all time. Um, it is going to be something in that locker room to replace. They've got good leaders. They've got good guys that are in there right now, but it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And it'll be interesting to see where he ends up being in terms of what media
Yeah.
outlet is going to scoop him up, because I think that is going to be in his future for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yo, Pate Lane, co-host of Pat's Nation podcast.
Yep. Patriot Nation Pod. Same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Patriots Nation podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, man. It's, again, like you said, the inaugural podcast of the new league year, which I probably need to start labeling these now season 2, because, hey, it is about that time. But yo, man, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man. And love to do it again anytime. You let me know anytime, and I'd be happy to come back on.
Yes, sir. Have a good night.